Hello, everyone. Oh, here it is. Hello. This is Her Fantasy Football here doing a quarterback show. And sadly, I'm going to be your host today. I am Brandon Marianne Lee. Courtney Kirby is in Las Vegas. A couple interesting things are happening in Las Vegas, Ashley.
Yeah, some Stanley Cup action.
Yeah, she is not at the Stanley Cup, but we wish she was. But she's there, and it's exciting, and everyone's super pumped, and it's great. She's visiting family, so we are without our trusty host, so apologies. Go follow the show on Twitter at HerFantasyFB. You could also come to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. We'd love that too. We never say that enough. But you know what? It's basically the beginning of the season. All the Scott Fishbowl invites went out, which is what's buzzing on Twitter right now. People are playing best ball leagues. People are already drafting like crazy people all the time. And so we decided to come out with some of our rankings early this year. So we're going to start out with the quarterbacks. Normally, we like to wait until July 4th, but Ashley, our hands were forced.
They were forced. And I am a firm believer in not drafting right now. It's way too early. It's way too early.
As poor Hunter Henry found out.
Right? Brutal.
I know. So excited.
Something always happens in OTAs. It just happens.
This is just the time. You got to really, keep your head on a swivel. Also, if you are doing drafts this early, you guys, and I am too, I'm in a couple best balls right now and a couple eliminated leagues and what have you. Make sure to have depth. Do not punt at any position, because if you only took one or maybe two tight ends and it's a best ball league, you are now screwed if one of those tight ends was Hunter Henry. So that is why we always promote depth. Make sure you have all your bases covered. And this was the same thing with quarterbacks. Remember, quarterbacks go down too, you guys. I mean, Aaron Rodgers killed me last season in the leagues where I took him. Killed, murdered. Yeah. I was dead. So, and my poor boy, David Johnson.
And need we mention Andrew Luck?
Or Dalvin Cook. There's Andrew Luck. Is he playing football this year?
The ultimate one where you just got blasted for that. Just brutal. I don't even know if he's going to play again this year. We'll see.
We're going to talk about it. By the way, we have a chat here on YouTube right now saying the shark has missed you, ladies. Well, we missed the shark too. Let me tell you, Ashley particularly loves left shark still. It's been years. We're still about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ain't nothing wrong with a little left shark.
Yep. Still my go-to. In fact, when we moved, we pulled out of our crawl space and I was like, oh, shark. Shark.
Shark. So we are talking quarterbacks. We're going to go through our rankings. We will post them on the site after the fact. So we're going to start off with the number one, Aaron Rodgers. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers, when healthy, is the number one quarterback, I'm pretty sure, to pretty much anyone on the planet. But number two is a little surprising, but not really when you consider the fact that he was the number one fantasy quarterback last year. Also had the absolute most passing touchdowns, which will blow your mind. But it was Russell Wilson, who continues to be a top 5 guy every year. Listen, I know that it's a little high. And you know what underneath him? I put Cam Newton. Why? Because every year that he has been healthy and was not out in games because of injury, he's been a top 5 quarterback as well. Why? Because they all have that running floor, right? It raises their floor, all those rushing yards. So Ashley, I know that this is painful for you. There's only one of these guys I think that you actually do like. So talk to me about these top 3 and how you feel about that moving forward.
I like all 3 of them. Russell Wilson and I have struggled over the years together. But you know what? I would put him here too, because they still, while they have Rashad Penny as a running back, rookie unknown, they had no running backs last year. All they could do was throw. So this was like the first year that he actually came out of the gates and was actually hot versus waiting till mid-season to start pumping it up for you. So I think you're still going to see a lot of that passing game. They still have strong receivers. I don't love the tight end situation as much there, but I do think Rashad Penny, I think, is going to bring some nice balance to this team. And I think that they saw that Russell Wilson can pass and that they need to do more of it. So I like where he is. I actually like all 3 where they are. I'm intrigued by Aaron Rodgers because Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb had a so year, but they've got Jimmy Graham now and Mercedes Lewis, which is really interesting that you got a team that never uses their tight ends with two really interesting tight end options on this team for this year. So I think we're going to see a little bit of a different scheme out of the Packers this year, but I like where all three of these players are. And I like Cam Newton because we got Christian McCaffrey leading off the depth chart for the running back. And again, he's a pass catching back. So that's going to benefit Cam Newton as well. So I like where all three of these are placed, Brandon. I don't actually have any beef with this.
I think my only beef is that Schottenheimer is the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. Very troubling. And why? Because my guy Warren Sharp over on Twitter, he actually tweeted and he quoted this like video. I'm going to pull it up, but it's basically Schottenheimer saying, "We're going to run the ball every single down until we get a first down."
No, you're not. Why would you? Why would you?
If it's not working,
yeah,
you don't do it again.
I'm not worried about it. That's crazy talk.
I think what's going to happen though is that Russell Wilson's going to bail out Schottenheimer is really what's going to happen. You know, he's going to make it okay because this is what Russell Wilson does. He puts the whole team on his back and then they move forward. Now, the Seattle Seahawks also this week famously added Brandon Marshall to the mix. And by the way, Des Bryant is still out as a free agent. So I know this is the quarterback show, but later we'll probably talk about some quarterbacks that might like to have Des Bryant in their ranks there. But Brandon Marshall isn't exactly someone that entices me, but I think it does take Tyler Lockett outside of the sleeper conversation, right, Ashley? We've never really been Tyler Lockett truthers.
No, I mean Tyler Lockett's a far different player than Brandon Marshall. It's just intriguing to me because you got Doug Baldwin, so it's an interesting makeup of these three receivers on the team. But I think that's kind of the Seahawks jam. I think they don't really take traditional players, other than Jimmy Graham is a traditional tight end in that sense. But although he couldn't block initially when he got there. So that was concerning for, at the time, a very heavy running team. But I don't know. I mean, Brandon Marshall, I just don't know. It doesn't make me excited about Brandon Marshall either, though, per se. No, I'm just kind of ho-hum. It just reinforces my love of Doug Baldwin, really, is all this does.
Doug Baldwin, beautiful route runner, excellent athlete. Doesn't change anything. Cam Newton, I don't know what he needs to do. I'm actually a little high on Cam Newton compared to a lot of people. He just keeps dropping in drafts. And you guys, I don't know what Cam Newton needs to do to prove to you guys since 2011 that he's a top fantasy prospect, but just get over it. It's true. Then I have Tom Brady. I have to believe that at some point he will seem 40-ish. And my worry is I don't want to be there the year it happens.
The year it happens.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not down on Tom Brady. I feel like I'm still at number 4, so it's not like I'm saying like he's going to be bad. But I feel like at some point we're going to see, because usually what happens, we saw it with Peyton Manning too. It wasn't like a, petering off. It was a nosedive. And if that happens this year, I just can't have it on my team. And
I feel like, he's going to Adrian Peterson me. Because I never took Adrian Peterson. I never, ever, ever had Adrian Peterson on any of my teams. Not because I disliked Adrian Peterson. I was just never in a position where I was able to get him. And then I was, however many years ago it was, and I took him. And it was the year he nosedived. And I was like, are you serious? And I feel like that's what happened if I took Tom Brady. I'm not saying don't take Tom Brady, because Tom Brady has not showed signs of slowing down, but neither did AP.
Well, neither did Peyton Manning. He almost broke records. And then the next year it was just a disaster. But, then they won the Super Bowl. So I'm not saying they're not going to keep winning football games either. I want to make sure that's clear. We're talking about fantasy versus reality here. But I do think that at some point that's going to happen. And I just personally would rather have all of these other dudes instead. Speaking of some young guns here, and then also giving some injury updates, Deshaun Watson is supposedly going to be A-OK at OTAs and everything's fine and dandy. So great. Carson Wentz is supposed to be ready for week 1. He is jogging around on everyone thinks that he looks great.
Good sign.
Good signs there. So in terms of drafting them, I think the thing is that Philadelphia's been very clear that they're not going to rush Carson Wentz back. Houston's been pretty clear that like Deshaun Watson is back. Okay, they're just done. So he's out there. I think there's a possibility Carson Wentz drops a little bit because people get a little nervous not seeing him. Because listen, if you're the Eagles, why would you rush Carson Wentz back when you have Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles hanging out there? So you could just have him play for a while. And he may not even play in week 1. I mean, they said he's going to be ready for week 1. But that still wouldn't be crazy from a real football perspective. How do you feel about these two guys and the injury? Because obviously both of them were on pace to be top quarterback prospects of last year. Obviously both were derailed with injury. How do you feel about both of them? And do you feel one way or the other about one or the other?
Well, I like Deshaun Watson a lot because not a whole lot has changed. Right. So you got consistency there. You still got DeAndre Hopkins. You still got Will Fuller. Sammy Coates is in the mix, which is interesting. I'm intrigued by that. But you still got Lamar Miller, Deontay Foreman. Not a lot has changed, and he's just a fantastic player. So I feel good about him. He's had a little bit longer time to heal. So that's also a good sign as well there. In terms of Carson Wentz, I am praying he drops because I also think that he will drop because everybody gets a little nervous. And this, to some extent, I would say is a little bit of the Andrew Luck effect that people were being told, oh, he's coming back. He's coming back. He'll be ready week 1. And then all of a sudden, he didn't play the whole season. So I think there's a little bit of nervousness there. Now, Carson Wentz plays in perfectly with how I draft because I very rarely get a top quarterback. So I like to take, which is controversial, I usually take 2 quarterbacks and I take 2 a little bit more mid-round quarterbacks. Now, I wouldn't say Carson Wentz is a mid-round quarterback, but there's a chance he could fall into that range, and then I'm taking him because I do think he'll be back. But I do think that there's going to be a little bit of that Andrew Luck nervousness from last season of like, I just don't know if I could commit to just Wentz, that he may fall. And in which case, take advantage of that because I do think he'll be back, and I think he's going to be fantastic.
I do want to say one thing. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on Deshaun Kaiser, but I think the people that are taking him like as the number 1 quarterback, that are taking him as the number 1 quarterback, it's a little too bold for me. 1, their offensive line is still woof. 2, he had one of the lowest accuracy percentages in the National Football League last year. And that takes into consideration drops and what have you. He was down with Deshaun Kaiser. Okay. His accuracy percentage was 65.6 and Deshaun Kaiser was 65.5. Blaine Gabbert, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tom Savage, even Brian Hoyer, CJ Beathard, all of them, they had a higher accuracy percentage than Deshaun Watson. Now, I am not saying that means the end of the world, but it does mean that there could be some bumps in the road. And I still think that there are going to be fanboys or fangirls in your draft who's going to take him too high, and I'm okay with it. That's all
I think that's completely fine. I mean, I agree. I tend to be conservative when I draft. That's just who I am. And I agree that there is some concern. I would feel better with Wentz than Deshaun Watson. Yeah, personally.
I also think he's just more protected. But, I mean, I
understand. Yeah, I understand why he's lower, though, because the injury, there's a little bit more unknown. So if you're drafting today, which again, that's a really early draft, there's a lot of unknown there. I do think he'll come back, but there's some unknown.
Well, and I just want to say too, you guys, Carson Wentz only played in 13 games. I told you Russell Wilson had the most passing touchdowns in the league. Carson Wentz was number 2 with only 1 less passing touchdown at the end of the season with 3 less games. So
I love Carson Wentz. I love him.
Just love him.
It's probably the Midwesterner in me that I just love.
I know. And he looks like Prince Harry.
Every time does look like Prince Harry, doesn't he?
People were actually tweeting like, congratulations, Carson Wentz, on your beautiful wedding. It's weird. It's funny. Really weird how much they look alike in weird pictures. You're just like, that's the same guy. So next I have Drew Brees. And I feel weird having Drew Brees at 7. I just think what's great is that the Saints don't need to lean on Drew Brees like they did before. So he'll still put up 4,000 passing yards, but there might be more rushing touchdowns, just like they were last season. And I'm fine with that. He's still a solid quarterback. And if he falls low enough, especially if you're doing a lot of industry drafts or you're with a lot of late round quarterback guys, Drew Brees might be the biggest value out there because he definitely has one of the highest floors. But again, he's getting older too. So you also don't want to be on that year either. He's a little younger than Brady, but Brady also is like, drinking vampire blood. So
I know it's weird, but Drew Brees doesn't scare me in the way that Tom Brady scares me, which doesn't make sense. But he just doesn't. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I get
why he's a little low. I mean, I get it.
Who would you put him above?
I mean, I'd personally take him over Deshaun Watson.
Would you?
Because
but I'm a little low on Deshaun Watson.
Concern. I get the well.
Because a lot
I
of
get
people
the
like,
concern.
yeah.
You have Alvin Kamara and you've got Mark Ingram, although Ingram suspended initially, but they were fantastic. I mean, and they really did it wasn't Drew Brees having to carry everybody on their back last season like it had been previously. And so I agree. I mean, there was a little bit of less production there. And it wasn't that Drew Brees was bad. It was they had a more well-rounded offense. So that was what the case, in my opinion, was. But I mean, I love Drew Brees. I don't think he has shown any signs of slowing down either. It's a tough one because these guys are all good. They're all interchangeable, right? I mean, I'd be happy with pretty much any of them.
Yeah, I think the top 7 are pretty set for me. I'll also say this. The Saints had a decent defense. That's really what it was. He didn't have to throw it down the field trying to catch up because the other team was scoring 50 points. Instead it was an actually decent game. So he was able to sit back and, play like smart football and just, maintain and win a game. So good for him. I mean, it makes me really happy. But for me, out of this top 7, I'd be perfectly fine. And I think everyone, we always say this every year, feel good waiting for the 7th to 12th quarterback coming off the board. You don't need to worry about it. So let's get into those mid-range guys and who we're going to pair up here. So we've got Kirk Cousins, Ben Roethlisberger, Matthew Stafford, Matt Ryan, and Phillip Rivers through 12. Okay. Who out of those guys do you like the best just at first blush?
I'm leaning between Stafford and Roethlisberger.
Okay.
I know people, I should say Kirk Cousins. I feel like, I don't know. Everyone's super jazzed for him in Minnesota. And I get it.
Yeah, but he does have a little like bust smell to him.
A little bit. Am I right?
A little bit.
I'm a little gun shy.
A little busty over here.
On Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I mean, Thielen's great. Stephon Diggs is great. LaCron Treadwell's, that's kind of up in the air. He's got Kendall Wright, another player that, hit and miss. Kyle Rudolph's a fantastic tight end. I mean, he has shown that he can throw to his tight end. So I think that's actually, good news for Kyle Rudolph. You got Dalvin Cook back, Latavius Murray still there. I mean, everything is there on paper to say that he should do well. I don't know. I kind of like the feel of Matthew Stafford with Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones and Golden Tate a little bit more.
They're going to
know why.
And actually, I like Kerryon Johnson too. I know that that's not a popular opinion, but I feel like they may have a chance of actually, having some rushing yards to actually keep the defense honest for once, which would be great. Kerryon Johnson does have some injury history issues that, are a little disconcerting, but yeah, I agree. I think Matthew Stafford has to throw. Marvin Jones and Golden Tate were both great last year. Golden Tate started slow.
Yeah.
But, that's because he was like not injured enough to not play, but too injured to have those yards after the catch that make him so valuable. But you could see week 4, he started blossoming. So,
and Galladay's got a season behind him now. So I feel good about that.
Right. I like that too. And then who's the other one that you liked? Roethlisberger?
Ben Roethlisberger. I just have a hard time you got Antonio Brown on a team and Juju. I like Juju. I mean, I'm intrigued by Jesse James and Vance McDonald. Again, those are very low-end tight ends for you, but guys that you can certainly stream, especially in particular options. I don't know. I think with, a new quarterback coming in, it may light a little fire under Ben Roethlisberger. It's like the first year he hasn't really talked about retirement. So... You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. He's excited for this season for once. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's a little something that's like, hey, I'm still here, still in town. So I don't know.
Still in town.
And who are you leaning to in this list?
Oh man, I want to say Kirk Cousins because I believe that the weapons around him are so good. I need to see him with these players.
I need to see some preseason.
There's something that's not settling with me as well. But I think that probably out of all of these players, you'll probably be able to get Matt Ryan for the cheapest because they only scored 2.2 touchdowns per game last year, and people are really scared because Sarkisian, their offensive coordinator, is struggling. Can we say that?
Sure.
But really, the yardage was there for everybody, to be frank, but there were just no touchdowns. They have to score touchdowns. That's just something that needs to happen. And I believe that they're going to spend the entire offseason, preseason, everything towards the idea that they have to score more points. Now, they weren't a terrible team. And again, they were able to move the ball. So you have to believe that there's the recession towards the mean here, regression towards the mean, which, happens up and down. So I think they're going to score more touchdowns this year. And I think he'll be a little more valuable. And I think people are just out on him because he's kind of boring. Sarkisian's there. People are out on Julio too, which is,
Yep.
crazy. But, I get it too, because the problem with Julio is that he's these 200 plus yard games. And then he has 18 yards or 30 yards and no touchdowns for 3 weeks. And you're just like, what am I doing here? Yeah. So, I get it. But to me, I think that Matt Ryan's someone I could probably get even later than 12, probably. I'm probably a little higher on him than a lot of people.
I bet you are higher than him.
Yeah.
And I think you can get him lower. I feel that the Falcons had this kind of just cloud over them all last season.
Yeah.
In terms of all the eyes on them over the horrendous Super Bowl loss. And I don't want to say loss because they didn't lose it, I guess, technically. It was a loss. And I feel like there was this cloud over them. And I feel like this year that is kind of the pressure's off and they can kind of get back to playing ball. And so I think that's going to be helpful in that sense. And I think it's intriguing that people are a little bit down on Julio Jones. It's interesting.
I
mean, they still have Freeman. They still have Coleman. We weren't sure that was going to maintain through the offseason, and they maintained it. So they've maintained their core. So I don't know. I feel okay about it. Again, I think you're going to get
Calvin Ridley in the draft. Yeah. I think that they added some pieces. I feel like Sarkisian, I don't know. I felt like he almost wanted to shove them down or something, calm them down or something. I don't know. I don't know what was going on there. I hope that he has taken this offseason to look over the tape, evaluate how to better use these players. The players are all there. They're all ready to go. I'm just hoping that it can, come to fruition here. But if it does, he's going to be a value play. And the one guy that we didn't talk about on this list is Phillip Rivers. I think we may have an AFC West bias because I just can't.
I'm really struggling with this one a lot. And again, I don't know why, but I feel like, okay, Keenan Allen had a healthy season. Can he have 2 in a row? I don't know. I just don't know. And you got Mike Williams, Terrell Williams, both up and down. Travis Benjamin, super busty. Hunter Henry already got hurt, which leaves you with Virgil Green. And because we are Broncos fans, we know the Virgil Green situation. Although this could be really interesting for Virgil Green this year, but I just don't have that faith in Virgil Green for it. I think that Virgil Green is going to be a hype player that's going to bust. So I don't love that option. I don't know. I don't know. Not feeling great about it.
Yeah. I just feel like Phillip Rivers is kind of in the middle of all stat lines.
Yeah.
Just middle. Keenan Allen had a great season. I have nothing bad to say about him. I'm still going to be all in on him. And yeah, I mean, certainly there have been concerns about his health in the past, so that doesn't surprise me entirely. But in terms of stat lines and what have you, in terms of, accuracy and yardage and touchdowns and things like that, he's just kind of pedestrian. He was 5th in terms of touchdowns last season with 28, tied with Ben Roethlisberger and Jared Goff, if you can believe that. He did put up 4,500 yards, which was 2nd in the National Football League behind Tom Brady. So that's really good. The thing is, he was only sacked 18 times, which was one of the fewest in the National Football League. So he was kept clean. This was kind of the ultimate year for him in terms of being able to make it happen. So I'm intrigued by him. I think that he's just, someone that, he's just.
I feel like I'd rather take the guy you got right below him.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a minute because I got a little bold. But I think actually to me Phillip Rivers is the perfect guy that I want to pair with someone else because I feel like Phillip Rivers is. I think the reason why we always get a little kind of dicey about him is because he's very streaky. In his history, not necessarily last season, but historically speaking, he's very streaky in terms of scoring a lot of fantasy points and then having less than 10-point games. And you cannot have your quarterback scoring less than 10 points and win a matchup. That's just rough stuff. So, but I'm going to take a quick second here because I want to thank our sponsor, the one, the only, Hello Fresh. So you guys can take $30 off of your first week if you go to HelloFresh.com and enter the promo code HERFFB30. It is super convenient. The selection's phenomenal. They're flexible plans. It's really simple. My favorite part is that the recipes are super easy to follow and they're fun to make. I make it with my husband all the time. Ashley makes it with her husband all the time. And actually, we keep ours in a little binder. I'm not kidding you guys, because people will be like, oh, do you really eat HelloFresh? Oh, yeah. We have so many recipes. We keep them in alphabetical order.
We save them too. Yep.
Do you?
Oh, by alphabetical. Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be.
We save them. We don't have them in alphabetical order. They're not in a binder, but they're like in this little section with our recipes. So I can just go grab all the different sheets, depending on what we want to do.
Yeah. And actually, I'll go back and I'll look. Because every single week you can pick out which ones that you want, 3 meals or whatever your selections are. And we'll go back and be like, oh yeah, no, we really liked this one. So we make little notes and stuff. So we're like, yes, that's the one that I want. You choose the delivery date that works best for you. You could pause it for the weeks that you're going to be out of town or what have you. It's delivered to your door. Who doesn't love that? And you get to try new things and become a better cook. So again, for $30 off your first order, go to HelloFresh.com and enter the promo code HERFFB30. Again, that is HERFFB30. You will be happy that you did. All right, Ashley. Now to the controversial moment.
Is it?
I'm actually not going to have him ranked here. I just want to talk about this. I put it here as a conversation piece. And I did this as well on the Fantasy Alarm show that we did live. It was like a month ago. We did a live feed about quarterbacks, and I did this with Howard Bender. I have Blake Bortles at number 13. And I'll tell you why. Ashley, who was the number one quarterback over the fantasy football playoffs last year?
Blake Bortles.
Yeah. Week 14 through 16, Blake Bortles was the highest scoring fantasy quarterback. Also, how many monster points did this guy put up against Pittsburgh and the Patriots?
He killed it.
He killed it.
Proved that he was there to play. You know my feelings on Blake Bortles. I love Blake Bortles. I made the bold statement last year that this guy almost always falls in the top 10, that you should draft him. Because he does. It's a fact. It's a fact. I don't know what to tell you. It's a fact.
Yep. It just, I'm sorry.
It is what it is. It is what it
Death,
is. So.
Taxes, Blake Bortles in your fantasy football championships. Sorry. We don't make the rules.
There's very few better streaming quarterbacks, period.
But here's the good news. We don't need to rank him at 13. You can get him in your last rounds of your fantasy drafts. Right now, if you go to any best ball drafting thing, whatever it is, he is one of the last quarterbacks that are going to go off the board. We do not have to rank him here. I'm actually saying I may just punt at quarterback and draft Blake Bortles, Alex Smith, and Case Keenum just over and over and over again in my last round of the draft before my kickers and defense. I'm just serious. That is how late you can take these guys, and they're going to be just fine and just stream. I don't understand. And that's what I'm also using this as an example of how deep the position is, right, Ash? I mean, look at all these people that we're A-okay with.
Yep. Again, this is why I say I like taking two quarterbacks, because I have personally been one of those people that has lost your quarterback. And depending on what the size of your league, I have no option. So for me, the likelihood that I would maybe play Blake Bortles is much higher than my 6th, 7th wide receiver that I have drafted, that more than likely I'm dropping at some point in time anyway. So for me, I am willing to do the two quarterbacks. And I think Blake Bortles is a perfect guy you can stream. Now, as Brandon said, you don't have to draft him this high.
No.
But she's put him this high because he's worth mentioning this high, because he always finishes around the top 10. Always.
Well, and I know you and I agree with like the drafting two quarterbacks and then rotating them, as opposed to truly streaming where you pick up one, drop them and whatnot every week. And the reason why you do that, you guys, is because if one gets hot, okay, and you can't pick up the guy, or if everyone's streaming in your league, or if you're competing with people or using your waiver wire spots on your quarterbacks, it can really drag down what you're able to do with the running back and the wide receiver position, where you really need to put all your waiver energy, right? And all your fab money. Everything needs to go there. So we're kind of about pairing. And my point putting him this high is, imagine how great your team would be if you paired Phillip Rivers and Blake Bortles. Matthew Stafford and Blake Bortles, Kirk Cousins and Blake Bortles. I'm just saying, this guy you can get at the end of your draft to pair with these middle tier guys. And I know that you, Ashley, have been an advocate.
Preaching the choir. I probably, there's few people I feel stronger about than Blake Bortles in this league. which has gotten me some flack over the years. But
That's
I 100% believe it. Because again, like you said, use your money where it's more needed. And that is your wide receivers. That is your running backs. Those are where you need to use it. And you still have players that you can drop to go get those guys come waivers. You have players to move. But let's say Blake Bortles gets hot, or let's say Alex Smith, like last year when he got hot, he was trade value for you as well. So if you have that player on your team, I mean, the 6 wide receiver that you drafted is not really going to be trade value for you more than likely. But Alex Smith could be. Blake Bortles could be. So for me, I love Blake Bortles. I'm glad we're talking about him. Again, I like the people that he's surrounded by. I like that there's probably be a confidence about him this year because they've committed to him. So no, I'm into this pick.
Yeah, they're already writing think pieces about how he's coming out like as a confident dude who's like, yeah, this is my team. And I'm like, yeah,
this is team.
That's right, Blake Bortles.
Run with it. Because you dominated in the playoffs. Fell a little short. But you know what? Nobody gave him credit to even get that far.
I mean, very little short.
They
almost beat the Patriots.
Very little short. I was just like, came
very little short.
Yeah. Very, very little short. Yeah.
I'm just saying that Blake Bortles, also one of my favorite sleepers, this is not a wide receiver show, though, is Keelan Cole. I love him there. Also, our friend Mike Dempsey of SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, who covers the Jaguars as Jaguars Radio, whatnot. I was doing draft coverage with him at the NFL draft this year. And the whole time people were like, well, the Jags might take a quarterback. He was like, nope. They are all in on Blake Bortles. And everyone's like, well, you never know. And he's like, no, I do. They're all in on Blake Bortles.
It's actually my job to know.
Yeah.
And they're all in on Blake Bortles. Yeah.
Right. I just said that. That's what he was saying over and over again. Yeah, I just said that. But people are like, oh, but they didn't take one. He's like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I am intrigued by Blake Bortles, and I'm going to go into the next one, which is the opposite direction, which is Mr. Unknown Patrick Mahomes. Now, if you are on fantasy Twitter at all, people are talking a lot about Patrick Mahomes. I have him this high because he's kind of a high risk, high reward guy. And like at this point, he's not a starting quarterback. Like you didn't have to spend any draft capital on him. So if it doesn't work out, it's fine. But if it does work out, great. Well, what do you think of this? I mean, everyone loves his arm and everything, Ashley, but how do you feel about taking chances on guys like Patrick Mahomes?
I really struggle taking chances on guys like Patrick Mahomes when there inevitably will be Blake Bortles still out there for me to take. We've already talked about Blake Bortles, but I have to make that point clear. For most of the guys we're going to talk about here, I struggle with that because Patrick Mahomes to me is it's an unknown, right? And Tyreek Hill is a fantastic player, but can be boom or bust. Chris Conley, Sammy Watkins, definition of boom or bust. Love Travis Kelce. You got Kareem Hunt, and it really depends on how they decide to run the game plan that week, as we all saw that all of a sudden tanked mid-season. You still got your Kendrick West and Spencer Ware there, but I mean, I think it's worth taking a chance as your second quarterback. I would not feel confident with Patrick Mahomes as my starting quarterback.
I feel like he's someone where you're going to feel really good if he's a Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz type. I'm just a little nervous. They don't have Matt Nagy there anymore. It's going to be Andy Reid. Andy Reid's supposedly really excited, and this is going to be that's why Andy Reid supposedly kept his job after he blew the playoffs.
Well, and then the AFC West with some tough defenses. So that makes me a little nervous too. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Like you guys, the hype train for Patrick Mahomes. Pat Mahomes is like it's off the charts. You either love him or you don't. So, like, frankly, it's not even worth ranking him because people are it's like one. It's kind of like Deshaun Watson. We could say this is where he should be, but it doesn't matter because there's going to be one person in your league who's going to
strongly
feel the love, and if it's not you, then it is what it is.
He's not quite Joe Mixon status of last year, but the hype is there. It's close.
I think he's in a better situation than Joe Mixon, though.
For sure. But you know what I'm saying? That Joe Mixon hype, it's like there's nothing I can say to encourage you or discourage you. You just love Joe Mixon, and that's how it's going to be.
Right.
And people feel pretty strongly about Pat Mahomes. I mean, he could be a Deshaun Watson. Could also not. So, I mean, for me, I would say, and it hurts me,
Winston.
I would probably rather go with Jimmy Garoppolo, the position below. And we all know my feelings on Jimmy Garoppolo. There's just a little bit more known there for me. A little bit more
Don't you
known.
get shout outs on Twitter about how down you are on Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah, I do. And you know what? Yeah. I'm totally okay with being down on Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm okay with that. And I just, I mean, I look at who's around him and I still don't feel great about it. Pierre Garçon, Marquise Goodwin, Trent Taylor, Walter Robinson,
So this is how I kind of feel about Jimmy Garoppolo, who is next. Someone's like knocking on my wall.
Because they're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo and they're saying,
I think so.
They're saying, move on.
I think they might be doing something else.
Or they're excited. I don't know.
Yeah, excited. That's the rhythm. Anyway, okay. If you hear the knocking, I apologize. Jimmy Garoppolo, you know what? I kind of feel the same way about these guys. It could be big. It could be a letdown. But I think it's worth taking a chance on either of them where they're going. Jimmy Garoppolo probably is going a little bit higher. Although, again, right now the ADP numbers are all over the map and people are doing best ball leagues. They're not doing regular leagues. So if you're in a best ball league, you want someone that has the potential of craziness because the best person starts each week. You don't need to make lineup decisions. But if I'm making lineup decisions, it could be a little hard for me if I have to decide between Drew Brees and Jimmy Garoppolo. That's tough.
It's not hard for me, but I can understand that'd be difficult for some on that.
Week to week, though. Week to week. But I'm not saying, obviously,
sure. I think the moment he actually loses one of his games, he's never lost as a starter or whatever, the hype will end a little bit. But,
well, one loss, I mean, that'd be bad.
He was in a system with the Patriots, first of all. I can't get into argument right now. I can't. I'm not there yet.
I'm
to have
totally
these fights.
baiting you. Okay.
You are baiting me. I can feel that you're baiting me. But I almost would rather have Jared Goff, who you've got below it, because I like Cooper Kupp better. I like Robert Woods better. I love Brandon Cooks, Todd Gurley. I just like that. I like that setup and that situation more than I like Jimmy Garoppolo's situation.
So here's the thing about Jared Goff. If you're playing best ball, which again, that's what most people are doing right now. So I keep talking about it, even though I think that most of our listeners probably are doing season long, but I want to talk about the difference here. Jared Goff is great for best ball because when he has big games, he has really big games. And when he doesn't, because they're just leaning on Todd Gurley, it's bad. But it's really easy, even in season long, to know when those games are. Like we on this show called it every single time, and not because we're geniuses, but because if it was a bad passing defense, they threw the ball all the time. If it was a bad run defense, they said, whatever, we got Todd Gurley. And they just did that. He's the easiest streaming quarterback maybe in the National Football League. Do you agree, Ash?
It's very simple, which is why he's a perfect person to pick down here, because this is a guy that we, again, not traditional streaming, but when you've got two quarterbacks and you're deciding who to start between the two each week, he's a perfect guy for that because you know his situation going into the week.
Corey Wilkes says, Goff over Jimmy G, the disrespect.
That's right.
Oh,
there it
Ashley. Is. Now, I have no problem with people wanting to go with Goff because of all the weapons there. But obviously, Jimmy G, he's magic. Underneath that, I have Alex Smith. And again, I think I'm going to have a lot of Alex Smith this year because
he never gets respect, so you grab him low. Yeah. Always.
I probably have him ranked higher than anyone else, and I still have him at 17. Okay. So no one respects him, but no one's behind him. He's not going to lose his job. And especially if you're doing, again, best balls, or if you're in a 2-quarterback league and you're looking for that third quarterback option, pick guys that are not going to lose their job. That is what's important there. And that's why I actually had a lot of Jared Goff last year, because he wasn't going to lose his job. That's how I feel about Alex Smith here. Now, Ashley, you're obviously an Alex Smith lover, and will always rub into our brother-in-law the argument that was who's better, Alex Smith or Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick's not in the league, but at the time, Ashley really dug her heels in with Alex Smith here.
Really did.
Really did. But, what do you think about this? And to be fair, I've ranked Jameis Winston, Andrew Luck, Dak Prescott, and Marcus Mariota all below him, which is a little crazy. But what are your thoughts on that?
I like the situation that Alex Smith is in. I do. I just think that Josh Doxson, Jamison Crowder, Paul Richardson, Brian Quick, they're all kind of like second tier guys. And I feel like Alex Smith kind of just rolls with those guys. I think he's able to bring out the best of them. He's a great leader. He's great in the locker room. I also really like the running back situation of Rob Kelly and Chris Thompson for the reason that there's inconsistency there. And Alex Smith is a good runner. So that actually to some extent benefits him fantasy wise, as I think he's gonna be able to run. I mean, Chris Thompson obviously has got great hands as a pass catching back. I think they're going to utilize that. But Alex Smith is very mobile. He is very, very mobile. He can extend the play, which is great for these second tier kind of receivers. I don't know. I think he's in a good situation. And I think more than anything, what I love, and I think we've talked about last season, is look for the guys that are disrespected in the league. And Alex Smith is one of those guys that is disrespected in this league, and he will fall. So he is someone that absolutely you can get as your second quarterback who could be used on a weekly basis if he's hot. So to me, I love Alex Smith for that reason. I think he's in a good setup. I mean, I like Jameis Winston too, but again, there's some inconsistency there in terms of the throwing completions. So I don't know. I like Alex Smith. I think he's great on his feet. I think he's in a good situation. So again, the disrespect works in your favor.
Well, and again, you can wait and you could pair up Jimmy Garoppolo and Jared Goff. You could pair up, Jared Goff and Alex Smith. You could pair up Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith. Have a newbie and a young. And guys that were on the same team before. I mean, whatever. But I think that you could actually do some interesting things down here. And then I'm going to get into the more controversial things that I did. I then went Jameis Winston, Andrew Luck, Dak Prescott, Marcus Mariota. A lot of people love Marcus Mariota this year, including the guy, Roto World, Evan Silva. I love him. We actually had a little talk about this because he actually says that he has more Marcus Mariota than any other quarterback in all of his best ball leagues. I was like, why?
Interesting.
Here's the deal. Last year was very weird for quarterbacks. A lot of injuries. And then there was like Deshaun Kaiser types and Drew Stanton and Blaine Gabbert. And, there were a lot of, people playing. At a certain point, it was like no one was a decent quarterback. I remember we even had that on our fantasy show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. And they used it as one of our clips where we listed the quarterbacks that were starting that week. We were like, who do you even pick out of this group? It's terrible.
Yeah.
And even in that group, Marcus Mariota was in the middle in terms of accuracy.
Yeah.
And so it's tough for me. He did catch his own pass in the playoffs, and that was impressive. But it's not good enough for me. Let's talk about Andrew Luck though real quick. Still hasn't thrown a football. And I'm starting to wonder if it's going to be Jacoby Brissett this year.
I think there's a very good chance it could be Jacoby Brissett. And when I look at this roster, I just feel nothing but sadness. Just sadness. I'm like, T.Y. Hilton, what a waste that was for him. You got Ryan Grant, Chester Rogers, KJ Brent, Jack Doyle, who did do great, Eric Ebron, Mr. Dropsies, and then you got your running back Marlon Mack. I just have no really encouraging feelings when I look at this roster. And then you take a situation again where you've got guys that need to gel, and their quarterback hasn't even thrown a ball. So are you going to get Andrew Luck again this year? You have to rank him this low. Honestly, even 19, I'm like, it's kind of a respect factor, I guess, to some extent. But it's like, is he going to play? Is he?
I think I probably, I think you're right. And I think I should probably put him below Marcus Mariota. And actually, our friend Michael Stepney actually said Mariota could be in for a bounce back year with a new offensive coordinator. Yeah. I think that's the argument, right? Is that there's a new offensive coordinator there.
I would put Luck right below Mariota. I'd keep Dak above Mariota, and I'd put Luck below him, just because the unknown. Again, how is it possible he hasn't thrown a ball yet? How is this possible?
Yeah, I mean, because it was interesting because last offseason, I had a insider of sorts who told me that they saw both Cam Newton, because remember Cam Newton was hurt coming into last year, and Andrew Luck. And that only Cam Newton was anywhere near being able to play. And I thought, okay, well, anywhere near, maybe that's another additional 4 weeks. I did not think it would be the entire season. That still wasn't let on to me that it was going to be the entire season. So the fact that he's still not throwing, I just can't trust anything, right?
Luck is not trying to force himself back. And Irsay clearly is not going to give you any sort of actual representation of what's going on there. So you have no good information, which is another issue I have with this, is there's no good concrete information about whether or not he is going to play. And I don't think you're going to have good information anytime soon.
So Corey Wilkes just said Luck is going to skyrocket up the boards after he throws his first slant in training camp. Maybe, but here's my problem. You just read their roster.
right?
Eek. Yeah, I mean, listen, T.Y. Hilton is great. And certainly, again, he had actually a pretty decent season when you consider the fact that Jacoby Brissett came in, traded in there into a playbook that was built for Andrew Luck, a completely different quarterback, no time really to prepare, and it was just a complete disaster zone. But the fact that then it's Ryan Grant and Chester Rogers, it's just, what is going on here? The running back situation, Naheem Hines got drafted. But they still have Marlon Mack, but Marlon Mack's hurt. They have to get him back. Yep. There's a lot going on.
You only have to cover 2 people on this team. That's it. That's all you got to cover. Jack Doyle and T.Y. Hilton. That's it. And then nothing else is going on.
Yeah.
I don't feel good about it at all. I would put him below Mariota.
What do we do with Dak Prescott?
This one's interesting, right? In terms of like him and Ezekiel Elliott stepping up to be the leaders on the team and trying to take that role on or whatnot. Not that I doubt it, but I look again here and I'm like, Deontay Thompson, Terrence Williams, Tavon Austin, which don't even get me involved in the Tavon Austin. That I love you get rid of Des Bryant and you bring someone like Tavon Austin in.
And now they're saying he's going to be a running back.
Why? Why would you do that when you had Ezekiel Elliott as your running back? I don't understand. And you got Rod Smith. So why would you make Tavon Austin a running back? He's a tricks play guy. That is what he's become at this point in time. And I don't even get it. Now, Allen Hurns is intriguing to me. He's about the only one that's intriguing to me on this wide receiving core. Just because I know what I get out of Terrence Williams. I know what I get out of Coles Beasley. I think he's going to be okay. I'm not ecstatic about Dak Prescott. I think he's going to be all right, but I don't know.
And again, not a wide receiver show.
Elliott will be fine.
Yeah, Elliott will be fine, but not a wide receiver show. But I think Michael Gallup is going to be the number 1 wideout rookie because he has to be.
He has to be.
He was very good at CSU. Next, I had Mitchell Trubisky. I'm not alone on this. I think that he is primed for a much better season. First of all, it couldn't get worse.
But he's got Allen Robinson now.
Yeah, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, I want to make sure we agree.
Jordan Howard show again. A-okay with that.
Right. Although everyone thinks it's going to be and Trey Burton. Although, Adam Shaheen's getting a lot of talk. They are talking about Tariq Cohen a lot. Although, you guys, Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard almost have nothing in common other than they're considered running backs. But they do not play the same game. It's just, because they can coexist and be great. Did we learn nothing from Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram last year?
Okay to coexist.
It's going to be fine.
Just fine. Yep.
It's going to be fine. In fact, actually, I think it'd be great if they actually had wide receivers there to take the pressure off of Jordan Howard having to run every single play in the National Football League. But I think Mitchell Trubisky is going to be a pretty decent player. I don't think he's going to be Fabu, which is why he's still ranked number 22 for me. But I think in real football, I'm very intrigued to see what he does. Case Keenum. I think he might be one of the little unsung heroes here, Ashley. Mm-hmm. I personally think that he might be a value play because there are some pretty decent offensive weapons around him in Denver. They have done some work on the offensive line. Ashley, tell me how you feel about Case Keenum.
I agree. I mean, I was a fan of Case Keenum last year. I think he fits well into this offense. I think the addition of Cortland Sutton is going to up Demaryius Thomas's game. And that is desperately needed.
He's already kind of nervous. Have you seen his interviews and stuff? He's like, yeah, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, you should be. So, I mean, it's. I think that's going to up that game. I think that I look at Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, and I think of it in terms of Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. And I'm like, I could see some similar play going on there. And I think that Case Keenum could really shine there. As long as, and I'm talking to Broncos fans here in Colorado, I don't want to hear any talk about Lynch. I don't want to hear any of that talk. Commit to Case Keenum. Because Keenum, and this is the first time he's really been like the guy. He's going into the season as the guy. So I think there could be a lot going on here that's possible. I mean, I'm not a huge Devontae Booker. I'm not sold on that per se. Royce Freeman's interesting to me. Still got Henderson there. So I think there could be a lot of throwing going on this year. And I think Case Keenum could be one of those guys, as you said, that's a great last pick, second to last pick, third to last pick, however it is you decide to do your defenses and kickers. I think he's got a good shot. He certainly has good weapons around him to do it. And I think there's a different energy as well with this team than there was last year.
I would love to never have to talk about Paxton Lynch again.
You and me both.
Ever. I don't understand. I do know that they are excited about his improvements that he's been making, but I remembered hearing this talk when the Trevor Siemian train was happening. If you cannot beat out Trevor Siemian for years, I don't want to talk about you anymore.
I don't think he can beat out Chad Kelly. So I don't want to hear it.
I agree with that too. Yeah.
I don't want to hear
about Chad Kelly. Yeah.
I don't want to hear it. But the issue for me is that was a John Elway guy. And John Elway, I feel, has a hard time admitting when one of his quarterback picks did not pan out. And that is what we are seeing with Paxton Lynch. So,
but he's so much better at free agency than he is at the draft when it comes to
so
quarterbacks.
much better.
Obviously, he brought in Peyton and made
better.
it work. Now he's bringing in Case Keenum. He's going to make that work. That's what he needs to decide that he's good at, because that's where his skill set lies. You got to know what you're good at. You got to know where you need help. And you cannot draft quarterbacks. Anyway,
no,
it's fine.
No.
That was Homer Rage.
Yep.
Sorry.
It needs to happen every show. But now you can rage on your next person, Brandon, because this is
I have Eli Manning, number 24, and I think I'm being generous.
You might be. I was surprised you had him this high, to be honest with you.
I felt like my hand was forced when I looked at the rest of the list. But yeah.
You know what? I actually don't mind it. But I want to hear why you put him at 24.
No. You tell me first. You tell me, because I actually am not as low on Eli as I am in other years. And by the way, in other years, I have ranked him as low as like 28 and 32 before.
You have. So that's why I was surprised to see him at 24 this early on as well. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I like Sterling Shepard. I like OBJ, obviously. These are givens. Evan Ingram, fantastic. I actually like Wright Ellison. But to me, it's the addition of Saquon Barkley to this team that ups my impression of Eli Manning, because they've just had such piss poor running there that I think this is going to really help even out this offense and allow things to open up a bit in a way that it hasn't in the past. And so for me, I like that. And you got Jonathan Stewart there too, with a little bit of veteran ship going on there. So I don't know. I think for me, actually, it's the running backs is why I feel better about Eli Manning this year.
I feel like the New York Giants went out and said, we're going to give you everything we possibly can, Eli. This is the year you win a Super Bowl. I don't think that's going to work out. But I think they did their absolute best. Their offensive line, they've made improvements on. My problem is offensive line is also about chemistry, and we have no idea how these people play together. So that's going to be something that we need to see. Also, I genuinely do not believe this was just an offensive line issue. Eli Manning, go back and look at the tape. Whenever there's a defender anywhere near him, he crumbles into a ball. It's bizarre.
Well,
he just kind of like collapses.
Self-preservation, though. I mean, look at it.
But that doesn't help your offensive. I'm saying that the stats didn't really tell the whole story, because sometimes I was like, you didn't even get hit. And he's just like, and I get it. And he's older too, so he doesn't want to. But it doesn't help your offensive line if you can't even lean away from a defender to make a throw. Like, you have to be. You don't need to be a mobile quarterback where you're running all over the field, but you do need to be able to lean and throw or avoid a little. Just pivot. Just pivot. So my problem is I'm worried about that aspect, because that's not on the offensive line. That's him. A lot of times when you looked, you were like, gosh, that was not really even a sack. It was like a tag. So I'm intrigued by that. And I'd like to see this offensive line together, but the weapons are there for him to be a fantasy superstar.
They're there. I agree. It comes down to that offensive line, most definitely. But I think that part of what you're saying is self-preservation, because he knew he was going to get hit. He had no protection. And again, we didn't have a lot of protection from the running backs either. So I think that the fact that we've got improved running backs is going to help that, and needed to spread the field. I mean, it was, but I agree with you. You look at Eli and you're like, well, it wasn't like Eli was really helping himself out much either. So I'll be intrigued to see how he does this year. I think 24, I mean, again, this is low. You're not drafting these guys. We're just talking about them so that you can keep them in the back of your head come, if there's an injury or whatnot. But yeah, I think he's going to do better this year. Certainly. I think 24 is a good place for him. I'm intrigued though that you put him above Derek Carr.
I did, because I think the Oakland Raiders
are all hype, overrated.
Are they overrated? I mean, does anyone believe in this team? It's like they took all of the good players from like 4 years ago and put them on a team, and they were like, you know what, this will work. This will work out. This is my fantasy team from 2014, and it was awesome.
I'd love to know the average age on this team. I mean, literally, Jordy Nelson, Martavis Bryant's not old, but Mark Cooper, Marshawn Lynch, Doug Martin. That's bringing that average down. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
and I think they're
you got the Gruden effect though. You're not buying into the Gruden effect.
I am not. And actually, even Derek Carr, he said something. He's like, he's getting used to the intensity
of Gruden.
Yeah. I don't know if you can get used to that. Is that a thing? I don't think so.
You embrace it. You don't get used to it. You embrace it.
I love Gruden. I'm just saying.
I'm a Gruden truther. I love Gruden.
24/7 Gruden would be a lot.
That might be a lot. It might be a lot, but we'll see. We'll see.
I need to see this offense, but Derek Carr really took a big step backwards last year. And again, I just don't believe in Amari Cooper taking the kind of step that he needs to take forward to be the number one guy. What we saw with Jordy Nelson last year was tragic. And before you say, well, but Brett Hundley, well, look at Devontae Adams. And Devontae Adams, by the way, I just want to point this out for all you Jimmy Graham truthers out there. Devontae Adams has the absolute most receiving touchdowns out of any wide receiver in the National Football League over the last 2 seasons combined. It's
fascinating.
So, where are all these other, these touchdowns going to go? So, but I don't know. It's intriguing. I put Joe Flacco down here too, because if Joe Flacco starts off the season the way he started off last season, there's a possibility that Lamar Jackson comes in. He was, I don't know if you guys remember, look at the first half of the season for Joe Flacco. He was worse than Deshaun Kaiser with the poor Cleveland Browns and Hugh Jackson. He was so bad statistically, you guys. So go back and look at that. If that happens again, and that's why I'm not touching him in any of these early leagues, best ball leagues, 2 quarterback leagues. Again, stick with people who will definitely have a job. I think there's a possibility he loses it. What do you think, Ash?
I think there's a very good possibility he loses it. I think the Ravens were my favorite offseason team in terms of the moves that they made. They made a fantastic job. I think it's really interesting. I think Lamar Jackson is very obvious as the quarterback of the future. They made that pretty clear. Flacco, I feel like that's the case. So, I mean, it's the last year for him here. So and part of me just like feels like Flacco's just so ambivalent. It's just like, I made a lot of money. Whatever. I don't know. I never feel that competitive drive out of Flacco.
Yeah.
To where like this is going to spark something in him by drafting Lamar Jackson. I just don't know if that's the case. I never feel that from Joe Flacco. So I agree. I think if you've got some bad games, I think there's a chance. I mean, it certainly will go to Lamar Jackson and not Robert Griffin. That's not happening. So to me, I agree. He's too low. He's been too inconsistent to even really consider him. I think there's just way too many intangibles going on here for that. But
although I find it incredibly intriguing that actually the 2 players that are most alike are Robert Griffin and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
So behind Joe Flacco, who is very different. I'm actually thinking about putting this guy above Joe Flacco, if you can believe it, Ryan Tannehill. No, we haven't seen Ryan Tannehill in a long time. There's rumors that people were actually excited to see Ryan Tannehill after a year of Cutler, and I find that funny. I just want to bring that up. Just
Cutler effect.
The Cutler effect.
I'm intrigued. You got Amendola on the team now. You got Devontae Parker still Kenny still, so I like that. Frank Gore is on the team.
I'm worried about not
paired up with Kenyon Drake.
Yeah. Mike Gesicki's going to be huge, though, that tight end there, because they're thinking he is the Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some interesting players. I mean, it all comes down to with Tannehill like staying healthy, and history's not in his favor. But I do think it's funny that they were so excited to see Ryan Tannehill again after Jay Cutler. I mean, what does that say? It's just brutal.
It's pretty brutal. Oof. Listen, he was always healthy. He, up until 2016, he started all 16 games, but then he only had 13, and then last season was kapooey. So
that's what I'm saying.
Hope for the best.
Recent history here is like,
yeah, it's bad. But I'm going to say this though. It's like, I mean, Derek Carr's like this. Eli Manning's like this. I feel like Ryan Tannehill's job is secure. Right now, his backup is Brock Osweiler.
Yeah.
Brock Osweiler's still in the NFL. Still making money. Think about that.
It's got a cush job, man. Wish I had it. Wish I was a backup quarterback.
We have done something wrong. And
Yeah.
Osweiler has done something
Part of it's
right.
we're not male, so that makes that difficult. But
Oh, yeah. Well, there's that.
other
Andy
than that,
Dalton. So AJ McCarron was shipped over to Buffalo. We'll get to them later. They're in 32. Don't worry about it, you guys. But Andy Dalton now has behind him Matt Barkley. So he's almost in the same kind of Ryan Tannehill situation. AJ Green is back. Joe Mixon, hopefully, after a year in the NFL and watching game tape, realizes that he has to run forward. What do you think could happen here? Because Dalton wasn't always a bad option, but wow, last year was scary.
Dalton's been a good option.
Yeah.
Quite a few seasons, but
2 seasons over 4,000 yards, but yeah.
But in terms of like a guy you could stream on certain games, Andy Dalton's always been a decent option, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Yeah, he's gonna have AJ Green back, but Brandon LaFell and Tyler Boyd don't excite me. Tyler Eifert, healthy. We'll see. That's tough. You got the Giovanni Bernard Joe Mixon situation yet again. I mean, you're right. I hope that Joe Mixon's figured out you got to be a north-south runner. I hope. But you still have offensive line woes there. And so I don't love that. That hasn't changed a whole lot. So I'm not high on Dalton. I'd rather have, well, I can't even say that. I don't know. I was about to say I'd rather have Tyrod Taylor. Maybe I would.
So here's my thing with Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield. I ranked Tyrod Taylor because I believe that he's going to be the beginning of the season. Now they're going to be on Hard Knocks. And now they're going to have that Hard Knocks bump. Yep. And people are going to fall in love with Baker Mayfield and his personality, which I get. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see Tyrod Tayller's personality. I'm actually a Tyrod Taylor personality fan. I like that he's kind of like sour. Used to be the word. I kind of like that.
A little
he's kind of got a chip on his shoulder. I like it.
Yeah.
Brady's sour and has a chip on his shoulder. I like it. So, I don't know what to do here, though. I feel like the Browns are really up in the air. They have a lot of weapons. I should feel good about them. But we've gone down this. We're trying to be optimistic about the Browns road before, and it's a sad road to be on. It's dark. It's dank. Has some potholes. Should we stay on this road?
Issues, got some, executive issues. I love Tyrod Taylor, but I don't know. I agree. I think that Hard Knocks. Don't get me wrong, I love Hard Knocks. I watch Hard Knocks. But you're right. I think Baker Mayfield will get a bit of that bump. Tyrod Taylor won't, based on personality. Although if you were like me and you were watching Hard Knocks last year, I was just waiting every single time Fitzpatrick came on the screen because it was gold.
Agreed.
I could see that Tyrod Taylor might be the exact same way because he's a little crotchety, a little funny. But not everybody, people are probably going to gravitate more towards Baker Mayfield's energy. And he's obviously, the young player of the future. They wouldn't have drafted him with the first pick. So
I like Baker Mayfield. I'm a Baker Mayfield girl.
Yeah.
So
I think for me, it's going to be a lot about Baker Mayfield, despite the fact he's not the starting quarterback. So that should be really interesting. But I do think it's going to give some good insight into that chemistry of that team. They've got some weapons, like you said. Njoku got Landry this year. I actually am excited about the Landry Tyrod Taylor pairing. That could actually be magic. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough because it's the Browns, right? So the Browns brown. Yeah. The Brown. So oof.
They do always brown. Michael Stepney says there's a cameo appearance by Lucy. There she is. Also, Darren Bukater says, thank you, Andy Dalton. # Bills Mafia. I loved when the Bills all donated to his charity. That was so cool. So, and again, we'll get to the Bills in a minute, but that was a really exciting moment. So, below Tyrod Taylor, I put Sam Darnold because I believe that he will eventually be the Jets quarter. I think Sam Darnold will be the Jets quarterback longer than Baker Mayfield, which is why so to me, this is like the back and forth here between these teams and same thing with Josh Rosen. I feel like they will have more games as the quarterback than not the quarterback, which is how I determined using both of them. What do you think on that? Although, Sam Bradford, you guys forget Sam Bradford used to be an excellent football player and a huge prospect and should have been great. And then he got Jeff Fishered and just, I don't know. I'm verklempt. What do you think?
He did get Fishered. People they like him. He's a locker room guy. I could see him and Fitzy getting along really well. And Josh Rosen is not as much a locker room guy. So I think you're going to have some really interesting dynamics in Arizona in terms of those two players and how the team responds to both of them. But I agree. I think Josh Rosen will play at some point. But Sam Bradford's the guy initially, and you got to give him that chance. And he can be a very good quarterback when he's playing. So there's no reason to rush, Josh in unless you absolutely have to. As for Sam Darnold, he's in a kind of a similar situation behind a well-liked, respected vet. But it's the Jets. So I think that there's a good chance he can get it in play. He's got some interesting players around him. I think it's so funny that Thomas Rawls landed on this team, but I don't, and Isaiah Crowell, Bilal Powell. I mean, it's an interesting team that I think that those are guys that you could pick up. I wouldn't pick them up probably, but I guess unless you wanted to. Sometimes some people, depending on how many picks you get, pick up a third quarterback and you pick those kind of guys up because you're waiting for injuries, right? In which case I'd probably lean Rosen more than Darnold just for the fact that I think there's a better chance that Bradford will end up being injured that would put Rosen in, and then you can use him as trade bait.
Well, McCown always gets injured too. So to me, that's the problem with these veterans. Thomas Rawls is only 24 years old. I feel like he's been in the National Football League for
I feel like I've complained about him a lot longer than that. Yeah.
24.
Wow. To be young again.
Yeah, right? Could you imagine? I have 32 as the Bills. And I'm going to get into this. I think they might be able to still get wins for all our Bills Mafia friends out there. For fantasy, though, I don't know if I can have a Bill on my team at this point because I don't know how the usage is going to go in terms of the targets. Poor Zay Jones had this like very bizarre incident that happened in the offseason. It seems like everything is, I guess, okay, but that was bizarre. Kelvin Benjamin was hurt all last year and no one knew about it. And then they did know he was kind of hurt, but then ends up it was way worse than it was. So hopefully he bounces back, but still it's hard to have a lot of faith in that. Sure. Listen, Charles Clay supposedly got healthy over the offseason, healthier, I should say. And he feels really good about that. But, no one's going to, really excite you here. And even LaShawn McCoy, he's now on the wrong side of 30, had a ton of usage last year. There's a lot of red flags in terms of, what could happen there injury-wise. And then you got this AJ McCarron, Josh Allen thing. And Josh Allen's accuracy issues bother me. They will bother me forever. So I can't handle that. And AJ McCarron, we don't know what AJ McCarron's like anymore. The guy hasn't played in years. I don't know who he is. Who cares? And at this point, you can't give me his college metrics because he hasn't been there in a long time. So I think my problem here is that I think they're going to do a very run-heavy offense. And then they're going to really spread it around. And it's going to be a lot of dink and dunk. And I have no idea who the starting quarterback is going to be. Do you?
No, because AJ McCarron has been someone that I have had mixed feelings for a while. There's a lot of confidence coming out of him that I haven't necessarily always seen the play to back it up. So, yeah, I think there's a chance he could do great. I don't necessarily know, as you point out, that I love the surrounding cast there. Zay Jones, super inconsistent. Kelvin Benjamin can be fantastic, but again, we don't know necessarily with the injury. Andre Holmes, Jeremy Curley, old, but can come out, a few games. Charles Clay, older. I mean, I don't know. I agree. I think it's going to be run heavy. I think there's a good chance Josh Allen does come in at some point in time for AJ McCarron. This could be a platooning situation. I think you could have a quarterback controversy as Buffalo does all year long. And that, in my opinion, generally doesn't foster great play from any of the players. So for me, I think this is a really tough one that I'm just staying away from.
Here's my thing about AJ McCarron. Drafted in 2014. He's 27 years old. So when people start talking about what he did in college, I'm like, I'm not hearing it.
No.
I didn't talk about what I did in college when I was 27 either. Okay. So fine. But
if he could do it in the NFL, he would have been a starter by now.
Yeah, because he only had Andy Dalton in front of him. It's not like he had like
Drew just Andy Dalton
there.
Dalton.
Yeah. Andy Dalton. So here's my thing. I think what it is I don't trust Sean McDermott. I don't trust their coach. And I don't trust their coach because they benched Tyrod Taylor
They
for
pander and
Nathan
cater
Peterman.
to the fans, and I don't.
And then here's the thing. Right now, he came out to the press and said that Josh Allen is practicing as the third quarterback right now, behind AJ McCarron and our guy, Nathan Peterman. So now it's like, I don't even trust who he's going to have on the field. And I know that he could just make a wild decision. It kind of shook my trust in the team for fantasy purposes, because I need to know someone's going to be on the field. That's my new rule. I'd like to know you're going to be on the field.
I'll be intrigued to see if it was just a Tyrod Taylor issue, if that for whatever reason people just can't seem to commit to Tyrod Taylor, or if this is a situation, as we've seen with some organizations, that they just cater to the fans. And we've even heard this when we've talked to certain beat writers about Buffalo, is that these fans are so intense that the organization caters to them and will play that guy because they just don't want to hear it anymore. And to me, that's not how you run an organization. That's not how you build a team. That's not how you build confidence around a team. That's not how you put the best players on the field. So for me, that's concerning. And I think that I just don't trust an organization and a coaching unit that operates that way. And I think that's what you're basically saying too, is I don't know who's going to be on the field because I don't know how they're going to be feeling that week. I don't think it's necessarily to do with who the talent is on the team per se. I don't know.
Yeah, and in terms of quarterback, you just do not have enough roster spots to have a guy on your team that's not going to be on the field. And that's why I always put guys, especially this early, like even, as I said, the Ryan Tannehills and Andy Daltons. I would rather have them, even though I know who they are and I'm not exceedingly impressed from a fantasy perspective. I'd rather have them, though, because I know that they're going to be playing if they're healthy. I have no idea who's going to play for the Buffalo Bills.
I wouldn't touch AJ McCarron or Josh Allen at all.
Because, again, it could be Nathan Peterman.
It could. And how sad is that?
And he's still the number 2, I guess. So, and to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure Josh Allen's ready for the NFL. I didn't think he was ready for the NFL when we went into the draft. So I'm not trying. I don't think they should force Josh Allen out there. But the other options are AJ McCarron and Nathan Peterman. So maybe they'll have to, because I don't know who these guys are either, other than, multiple interception, poor Nathan Peterman, or AJ McCarron, who hasn't played football in, 4 years. So
and I look at the people on this team, and I'm looking at this list, and I don't see anybody that takes a bull by the horns here in terms of a veteran that's going to help either of these guys. Because while McCarron has been in the league a long time, he's never been a starting quarterback in this league. And so to me, there's also nobody on this team that also is going to really kind of help guide any of these guys into that process.
I mean, I guess it's going to have to be LaShawn McCoy because he's the veteran.
But I just don't see him and his personality being the kind to do that. And that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying he's not that guy. He doesn't seem like that guy, in my opinion.
I would want him to concentrate on staying healthy because, again, he's gotten older, not rallying the troops. I just think that it'd be nice if someone else could do that, because he turns 32 or 30 on July 12th. So it's not like time is on his side. And listen, LaShawn McCoy's a fantastic athlete. Don't get me wrong. But, at this point, I just unfortunately think they're going to overuse him because of who's on the team right now and who they're going to have at quarterback. So I'm a little worried, to be honest with you. But listen, he's a great athlete, definitely the veteran here. But you're right. I don't know. Maybe Jeremy Curley.
I mean, maybe he's the only one I was kind of thinking, but Kelvin Benjamin's kind of always need a little bit of encouragement himself. Say Jones certainly needs it. So I guess it'd have to be Curley, possibly Charles Clay. But I just wish, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I wish there was a little bit more of a prominent player to help guide them into this.
Yeah, there's no Larry Fitzgerald.
And there's no Larry. Yeah, there's no Larry there.
So Jason Witten
to help.
Yeah, there's not that guy. But hey, maybe someone's gonna merge and it's gonna be really exciting. Maybe Josh Allen is that guy. I don't know. But
we'll see. But it won't be on my roster.
And that was one of the more confident choices that I made on this list. Now, Ashley, after going over the list, though, before we go, who do you think just, out of curiosity, will be on most of your fantasy teams or have the largest exposure to, let's say?
I'm hoping Carson Wentz, because I'm really hoping he's going to drop. I really think he's going to get a little bit of the Andrew Luck effect of people being nervous. It's going to depend on how much he's progressed, if what we see come off season, but I think he's going to fall right into my wheelhouse of where I like to take quarterbacks, and I'm going to get top production out of him. So I think I'm going to see a lot of Carson Wentz on my team. Outside of that, depending if he doesn't fall, maybe some Drew Brees.
Yeah. I think Drew Brees might be cheap enough where he's going to be a value this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to fall enough because people were concerned about Kamara. So probably some Drew Brees in my life as well. You?
I'm probably going to have a lot of Blake Bortles.
Well, that's a given for me. I didn't even mention it because that's obvious, but
yes. Probably a lot of that.
As my second, obviously.
Yeah, I have a feeling that I'm going to have some like Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, Alex Smith, Blake Bortles, Case Keenum type teams. And I might take some chances on Eli Manning. And you all know how I feel about Eli Manning.
I will be shocked if you take some chances on Eli.
I know. But he is so cheap now. You could get him as like one of your last round picks. And I just believe in all of the talent around him. So, yeah. And I don't really believe in the defenses, well, other than Philadelphia, in his division. So it's not like I'm scared. I think it could be intriguing. So believe it or not, you guys, you heard it here first. I'll have a lot of Eli Manning if I can get him at the end of my draft. But if I can't, there will be zero Eli Manning. So
I cannot wait for your bitterness all season long.
I will. Awesome. I will probably curse myself for saying these words out loud. But I cannot ignore the talent there.
Talent is there. Talent is there.
Yeah. And also, I'll say Cam Newton is dropping in a lot of leagues. I don't know what he needs to do to get respect, but if you're someone that isn't quite comfortable with full late round quarterback kind of play, and I understand that because we have a lot of people that are newer to the show, newer to fantasy football in general, and you're playing in leagues where people are taking quarterbacks a lot earlier, and you're like, whoa, this is getting scary. Cam Newton is falling sometimes for some people. So keep an eye on him too, I think. Because I know each of us play in different types of leagues. If you play in an industry league like we do, no one takes a quarterback until like the 8th round, but that's not normal.
That's true. That's a valid point right there.
Normal leagues are not like that. So I'd say Cam's another one I got my eye on. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate you listening to Her Fantasy Football. Again, go to HelloFresh.com right now. Enter Her FFB30. Get $30 off your first order. It is very important that you do so because they are awesome. So, again, we appreciate you. Have a wonderful time, and we'll be back soon. So, talk to you later. Bye-bye.